You are in the jungle. I am Matt Edwards. The Bengals coming off what will hopefully be their worst loss of the year in the concrete jungle. Well, not actually. They're in New Jersey. That's where the Jets and Giants play, but you get the point. I'm just going to talk about that for a minute, and then we'll get on to our guest who has Cleveland ties, and you've heard him on here before. I waited until Tuesday evening to record this, seeing if maybe the Bengals or anyone really would do anything of note at the trade deadline. Of course, the Los Angeles Rams got Von Miller. Outside of that, nothing too notable. The chatter all day about Deshaun Watson and Odell Beckham Jr., they're both still in the place they were the day before yesterday and the day before that and the month before that. You get the picture. The Bengals, of course, do nothing. A lot of Bengals fans, I think wanted them to get another pass rusher. That's understandable, but that position is in such high demand. Von Miller, who's been hurt for the last couple games and is still very good, but clearly no longer maybe one of the top 2, 3, 4 premier guys, he went for a second and a third. So, are the Bengals going to give up draft capital like that? No one gives up draft capital like the Los Angeles Rams do. I don't even know that maybe they just want to get rid of their scouting department, so they've decided just to give up all of their draft picks, and that kind of eliminates that need. Whatever. Can't criticize them. They've got pretty close here. And again, they were my preseason pick to win the Super Bowl. So I hope they win the NFC. And, I like to be right about things. So the Bengals don't make any moves. Brandon Seho and I talked about that last week. That is par for the course for this franchise, and that's fine. You really don't see a lot of teams go out and make a big splashy move at the trade deadline in the NFL. This isn't the this isn't the NBA. This is not Major League Baseball. That's how things work in the NFL. You build through the draft. Maybe you get some free agents here and there, but for the most part, you've got to get guys in during the offseason. It's hard to get guys to adjust during the regular season, too. Today's November 2nd. If you trade for a guy on November 2nd, maybe, hopefully, by the end of the month, he's with the program and clicking. There's some positions you can do that with, but for the most part, the NFL a little more complex than basketball and baseball and the likes. So let's spend a quick minute on the disaster in East Rutherford on Sunday. Look, man, I think the thing that bothers me is the Bengals blowing 2 double-digit leads. Like, if they just would have went in there and it would have been close the whole time, it's like, you know what, you come out and you have some stinkers, which clearly they did, but they were up by 11 points. It was 31-20 with 7.5 minutes to go. You got to find a way, and I know at this point you've already heard this, and this is common knowledge, but you just hope that it was a dud of a game. And look, everyone has duds of games. These games do happen, and that's why I'm not terribly worried about it now. If they come out and look bad against Cleveland on Sunday, maybe we all got hoodwinked a little bit. But for now, it's better to have that game happen on Halloween than it is in December. So no one goes undefeated in this league. And look, the Bengals are ahead of schedule in their rebuild, right? There's going to be some bumps along the way. We can't expect them. I know that's probably the one game you looked at on the schedule the rest of the way and thought that's their best chance to get an easy win, because there's really no more easy ones from here out. That was the easy one after Detroit. But those games happen. On the same day Joe Burrow lost to Mike White, Tom Brady lost to Trevor Siemian. These kind of things happen in the NFL. The Lions should have beat the Ravens last month. They got a little help from the refs, which we can relate to in Cincinnati. Good God. Those games happen. John Tortorella, former coach of the Blue Jackets, he used to say after really bad games, just burn the tape and forget it happened. I don't know if the Bengals can do that, but I think as a Bengals fan, as a Bengals follower, you say that's the mulligan on the year. Of course, it still counts in the loss column, but just forget it happened. Hope that they're super pissed off about it and come out and take that hurt out on Cleveland Sunday to go 3-0 within the AFC North. It's not the nail in the coffin, folks. It is far from that. The Bengals are still in good shape. 5-3. It lets Baltimore. The standings are what they are at this point. Those things will work themselves out. The Bengals have only played 2 division games so far, and they've won 2 in Cleveland and Baltimore. So, focus on the positives is what I would say. The sky is not falling. The sun will shine again. The Bengals, I still like them to make the playoffs, all right? I think we have all settled down, but now I'm settling myself back down. It's just one of those games you hope leaves a bad taste in the mouth of everyone wears stripes on Sundays, and they'll need it because they've got a big one coming up this weekend against the Cleveland Browns. Let's talk real quick about not necessarily even just the call at the end of that game on Sunday, but in general, the incompetence of NFL officials. And it's year after year, we deal with this and they just shrug their shoulders. No desire to fix it. I mean, what kind of analogy can I come up with on the spot here? This would be like if you were a cook and you made meatballs every week, but just forgot to put the breadcrumbs in. So there were parts of the meatball falling off, but you just said, whatever. I'll get them in the next batch. You never hung up a sign. You never got yourself an assistant to add in the breadcrumbs. Terrible analogy. Never good on the spot. Sometimes I'm good on the spot. That wasn't. You get the point. It's the same. That's the definition of insanity, right? Doing the same thing time after time and expecting a different result. How difficult on a call that simple? I understand there's a lot of close and complex calls, but on one that simple, when Mike Hilton goes in for a form-perfect tackle, and he's the one who absorbs the blow from the crown of the helmet from the Jets running back. I think it was, what's his name? Michael Carter or Ty Johnson. It doesn't matter. One of those two guys. He lowers the crown of the helmet, and you look, and there's the people too who say, well, the Bengals should have never been in that position. That's not how the NFL works. You can be mad about both. Both are true, right? One is true. Yes, the Bengals should have not found themselves down 34-31 with 1:16 or whatever it was to go against the New York Jets. But at the same time, if the refs would do their job, Joe Burrow gets the ball back with 40 seconds to go and a chance to go down and tie it up with arguably the best deep threat in the league at this point. Certainly, Jamar Chase is already one of the top 5. And T. Higgins was having himself a day when the Jets tried to slow down Jamar Chase, which they did. He still got in the end zone. He dropped a touchdown. But both things can be true. The refs sucked. The Bengals sucked. Everyone sucked. And that's why you just have to burn that tape and move on from it. Well, the Bengals do. The refs are going to continue to be terrible for the rest of the time. All right. Our guest today, who I'll bring on in just a second, you know him well. He actually did the first ever episode of this podcast. He was my fellow sports anchor in Erie, Pennsylvania, back when I was a young lad in 2013 and 2014. He spent nearly a decade covering the Browns and Steelers, and now he lives in Northeast Ohio and does normal people stuff, but still does a lot of radio stuff, calls in, and I don't know what he does. He's not on with me yet. I'll let you tell him about it. I'll let him tell you about it. But he's Craig Smylie. We're going to talk Bengals and Browns, and then I've got a rapid fire for him. And we're going to do it as the college football playoff rankings come out, so we'll see how that goes as well. Enjoy, Craig Smylie. All right, so Craig, I just did the first 8 minutes talking about that terrible day the Bengals had Sunday in New York. At the end, I tried to introduce you and tell people who you are and how we know each other. I did a bad job. What do you want people to know about you?
I'd like to know what you actually said. But
I just fumbled over myself a lot. I said accurate things, that we worked together in Erie, and you know, you've done a lot of things, and you did some time in prison, but came back from that a better person, and now you're here and you're in Northeast Ohio.
You got everything out of the way then. What else do I need to tell people? No, Matt and I knew each other working in Erie. One of the best guys I know. Had a great time working together, and now since about March of 2019, I've been out of the business and working as a teacher, high school teacher for juniors and seniors, teaching multimedia, videography, photography, website design, lighting, audio, the goods.
The goods. You're responsible for all these idiots on TikTok giving themselves fake diseases and having the video quality for them to get views.
Absolutely. It's all my fault.
Well,
what's funny too is that we do like a, we do the birthdays on the morning announcements every day. And like tomorrow, there are no birthdays in the school. Like no students have their birthdays. So I'm like, let's just see which celebrities, birthdays it is tomorrow. And I just Googled celebrity birthdays, November, whatever. And like half the celebrities that pop up are like TikTok star, Instagram star, YouTube. I'm like, what the crap?
Well, I just saw the list of the new people hosting Saturday Night Live the next 3 weeks, and I only knew one of the 3. Actually, if you look at the host and the musical acts, I only know 3 of 6.
That is an absolute abomination.
We're old losers. And
as our good friend Greg Gagne would say, get off my lawn.
Get off of our lawn. All right, well, I'll tell you who's not getting off the lawn in Cleveland anytime soon. would be one Odell Beckham Jr. He is still a Brown. His father, Odell Beckham Sr., I'm sure you could have guessed his name, went on Instagram today, posted a video of all the times his baby boy was open but didn't get the ball. How you feeling, Craig? It's like a real mixed crowd right now with Browns fans. Some people wanted him gone. Some people said, well, I want him gone, but you couldn't get anything back for him. Where are you at?
Yeah, I don't think there's a reason to get rid of him because I think two things. One, I still think the potential outweighs the reward of a trade, truth be told. And yeah, I mean, I'm not one of those guys that's, waiting for him to make the incredible plays that he made in New York. And I'm not one of those guys who's expecting, 11 catches for 215 yards and 3 touchdowns again. I'm just not expecting that. I never really was because he's been injured before he came to Cleveland and he hasn't been healthy. And I don't really understand why they can't find a way to get him the ball. I'm happier when they don't try to, because it feels like when they do try to, the team plays worse, but you can't play much worse than they did, at least offensively, last week against Pittsburgh. I couldn't beat a team without a kicker. So
I've said this before, and it doesn't bode well for either the Bengals or Browns. Typically, if you go back and look at past Super Bowl champions, and last year doesn't count, oftentimes there's not a star wide receiver, and I don't think OBJ falls in that category anymore, but most of the time it's a bunch of C+, B+ receivers, an A+ tight end, and an A quarterback.
Yeah, I know, and I've heard you say that numerous times, and you're not wrong, Walter. I just feel like, the Browns still, even with injuries, they've got tons of weapons. I don't want to blame the coach at all because I like the guy. I just don't think that he's necessarily, or the coaching staff as a whole, I don't think they've necessarily done the things that put this team in best position to succeed most often. For example, and again, as you and I talked about off the air, I have to admit that I was in Detroit over the weekend sitting at the Eagles and Lions game. So I didn't see the
What was
Browns,
the final in that one, by the way? Because I bet the Lions +3.
Well, you lost that one. It was
that
like 40, what was it, 41-6 or something. I didn't see the Browns and Steelers from start to finish, but I do know when Nick Chubb has however many carries he ended up with, even when he's not running super well and may not be 100%, when you're in a close game against the below average football team, you get him the football by any means necessary. And that's coaching, man. I mean, when you don't figure out, yes, Baker Mayfield is better off when he gets the ball out of his hands quickly. Well, then get the ball to the tight ends, get the ball to the running backs out of the backfield, whatever it may be. But you've got to, as the head coach, remember what got you there. It doesn't just happen again. It doesn't just all of a sudden you're just, Baker's going to be this consistent 300-yard passer. No, he's not going to be. He's going to be a guy who strives and succeeds off of bootlegs, play action, and quick passes, especially got Jack Conklin, right tackle, dislocated elbow. He's out multiple weeks. They've had Jedrick Wells, left tackle, who's been battling injuries since, the first game of the year. So, you're dealing with stuff, but deal with it. Figure out a way. It's not Odell's fault. It's not Baker's fault. It's everyone's fault. So I'm not in a panic. I just think that they're playing below their potential for sure. And they've got to figure out their identity, as cliche as that is.
I said on Twitter earlier today, Odell Beckham Jr. on Sunday this week in Cincinnati, he's either going to go for like 160 yards and 2 touchdowns, or he's going to have a meltdown on the sideline. I don't think there's going to be any in between. There's not going to be a 4 catch for 58-yard day.
I disagree.
You do disagree? Maybe I was just trying to be funny.
You may be right, but I don't. He hasn't had the meltdown. He hasn't had the meltdown.
But dude, at this point, he deserves
Cleveland.
to have the meltdown.
I don't think that's him anymore. I honestly don't.
You think he doesn't care? I wonder if he became too enamored with being the celebrity in New York and more of a celebrity in Cleveland. I mean, in New York, he could probably walk around and not constantly get noticed because people in New York City, the actual city itself, aren't nearly as into sports as people in Cleveland are. But there's a part of me, and this happened, I think, with Chad Johnson of the Bengals. he became more interested in Chad Johnson in People magazine and Dancing with the Stars than he was in Chad Johnson, the football player. And I think Chad kind of snapped a little bit when things didn't go his way on the field, as to where OBJ, I feel like, is just kind of like, yep, I'm a star. I'm going to be a star, whatever. I don't know that football is his top priority. And I'm not saying it has to be, but when it's not, it's hard to compete at this level.
It's like a buddy of ours that played wide receiver in Pittsburgh too, was the same way. I think OBJ, I think that he cares. I really do. I think that he's also like, if I ain't getting the ball, I can't throw it to myself. You would think that they would design things for him, but also you listen to Cleveland Sports Talk Radio, they're right. They talk about a lot of the big plays that he's had. They've gone to him on this year and he's dropped them. He's had a case of the drops, several fourth down plays and big plays late in games where they've gotten him the ball and he's dropped them. But same about Jarvis Landry. He had, against Pittsburgh, ball in his hands, chance to make a big play, fumbles. So neither one of those guys have scored a touchdown, I believe.
No, year. I think you're right. Yeah.
Receiving at least. So
pretty brutal.
It is what it is. You got to stick to your bread and butter. And that's Nick Chubb. And when Kareem Hunt's healthy, that makes a whole bit of difference in the world. So they'll do what they can do. They've got 3 really good tight ends, in my personal opinion, but your line is beat up. So get the ball out of your hands quick and then play defense.
By the way, this is audio only for our audience, but if it looks like I'm not looking at you, I've got the college football rankings on here in the background.
Okay, you want to tell me what's going on, or is that irrelevant to the Cincinnati Bengals fan base?
Well, they haven't got into the top 10 yet. I will tell you as we get into the top 10. Right now, they've got 15 through 11, BYU, Texas A&M, Auburn, Baylor, and Oklahoma State coming in at 11. So I'm guessing they're going to go to break here before the top 10. Former Bengals quarterback Greg McElroy on the broadcast, by the way.
Really?
There's a nugget for you.
Where do you put Luke Fickell's Bearcats? Where do you feel after when the rankings come out?
They better be at number 2.
Okay.
If you can go, you're undefeated for the second year in a row. Here's the thing. And we won't go too, and maybe people care about this. I don't care. It's my podcast. I'll talk about whatever I want.
Do what you want.
If the Bearcats do finish the season undefeated and they got the win on the road in South Bend, they won at Bloomington. I know those aren't 2 huge wins, but I think Notre Dame is a huge win. I think Notre Dame, as much as I despise that organization and that program, they're an excellent team and an excellent program. Brian Kelly does not lose games he shouldn't lose. If you beat Notre Dame, you earn that win. But if Cincinnati finishes the year undefeated and does not get in, what are we doing? Why even allow group of 5s to be in the college football rankings and the playoff rankings?
Agreed.
Okay. Glad we're on the same page.
I'll be interested to see what happens.
Yeah, I'll keep you updated. Maybe I'll do the do and break in.
Love it.
When it happens. But it's early. There's going to be a team in the top 10 here this week, maybe top 8, top 7 who loses this week or next week. It happens all the time. Iowa was ranked 22nd, and 2 weeks ago they were number 2 in the country.
Silly.
Yes, absolute foolishness. Okay, at number 10 we do have Notre Dame, and I'll ask you this question. It looks like they're going to go one by one at this point. If the Bengals beat the Browns on Sunday, where is your confidence in them making the playoffs going forward? And by the way, I think we all agree the Bengals are favored. I think it's very possible the Bengals win. I think anyone would say this is kind of a toss-up game, although the Bengals are slightly favored. What a freaking huge letdown if the Browns miss the playoffs. Do you think that if they lose Sunday, what would they be, 4-5 at that point? Is that it?
They would be 4-5, and it'd be tough. But again, it's usually with the 16-game season, and no, it's silly. You're just adding a game, but my brain is off a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally agree with you, because you can say like, all right, 10-6, you're in, although they missed it that way in 2005, 2007, I think it was. It was 2007 for sure. Wake Forest comes in at 9. But 10-6, you're almost likely in, but now 10-7, I don't know. I don't know what 10-7 means.
I don't know. Right. Exactly. It's literally the same thing. I don't know what 10-7 means either. And you're at 4, and they lose to Cincinnati. They're 4-5. 4-5 in a 16-game season is different than 4-5 in a 17-game season. But also, looking down the road, there's no cupcake for them. From here on
Baltimore
out.
Twice. January 3rd, they go to Pittsburgh on Monday night. Even if Pittsburgh ends up being as bad as we thought they were, I mean, they still go to New England, who isn't great. They've got Baltimore twice. They go to Green Bay in December on Christmas.
Yeah, they're in trouble, to be honest. Just to answer your question straight up, they're in trouble with a loss to Cincinnati. But you just never know. And again, you never know with a healthy Kareem Hunt back. I just don't see Baker getting healthy. I think you're getting what you're getting. So either you deal or you commit to Case Keenum, which, I'm 50-50. I really don't care, as long as you figure out as a coaching staff how to freaking use the weapons that you have. And they haven't done it this year, at least not since Hunt has gone down. So, I mean, even, because they had Chubb injured, so it was Hunt one game by himself.
Wow, Oklahoma all the way at number 8. I think they were expected to be higher, were they not?
See, that's what I'm saying.
All right.
So you never know.
Go on, sorry.
I think they'll be in big trouble if they lose to Cincinnati. And if I'm picking it, I'm picking the Bengals all day long. I mean, I think the Bengals have the better team right now, to be honest with you. Just, a healthier team. I don't know about defensively necessarily, but offensively, I think that they at least know who they are. And, and Joe Burrow's is a stud, and Jamar Chase is really just destroying my fantasy team week in and week out because I've got Mixon and I've got T. Higgins. And when you have T. Higgins and Mixon.
Yeah, Hickson. Higgins had a nice game on Sunday. I think he got hurt. I think it was week 2 maybe. And I think he's really just now bouncing back from that. I think it was an ankle. He missed 2 games, I want to say. I can't remember at this point. I drink too much to remember things like that. But I mean, Joe Mixon's missed a game as well. And then he pretty much missed a game. Technically, I don't think he missed it. I can't remember, man. I'm going crazy with my things I can and can't remember.
Yeah, I know why it is too. It's because I brought up my fantasy team and no one's allowed to talk about their fantasy teams.
No, you're allowed to. It's just, you're right. But at least you were proving a point. You talk about the Browns and the kind of their letdown this year. This is what I wanted to say. I think what we saw with the Bengals was a microcosm of Cleveland as a whole right now, as to where the Bengals go. They murder Detroit, whatever. They murder Baltimore in Baltimore and then kind of get too big on themselves and go have a letdown at the Jets. I know I'm not breaking any news here that this is a thing that happened. Michigan comes in at number 7, but the Browns last year, I mean, so they go into Pittsburgh. They win a playoff game. They go to Kansas City, almost beat the Chiefs in Kansas City. There's a part of me that says the whole offseason where they thinking, did they not work as hard as they typically do because they got so proud of themselves during the offseason?
Yeah, you could be right. And we'll never know. We honestly will never know. I don't necessarily think that that's true. I think sometimes it's just complacency is complacency. If you're not getting better, you're not going anywhere. And, I think a lot of people just know what's coming, kind of. They know what they're getting from the Browns. And again, defensively, they're dependent on guys that are, especially in that defensive backfield, or who are young. They got guys like Greedy Williams and Grant Delpit who have barely played in the NFL. You got Denzel Ward, who's just consistently hurt, talented player, hasn't played, super well. They bring in John Johnson, a handful of other names, Anthony Walker. Guys that have played well, Jadeveon Clowney up front. I mean, their defensive line's outstanding, but you still have to realize that, you got to be on the attack. You got to take those weapons that you have and utilize them, and not just be like, if we put these guys in the field, they're going to win. It's not that way. You got to find a way to get them the ball. You got to find a way on defense to get them to the quarterback. And if Myles Garrett's getting triple teamed, you got to do something and move them around to get somewhere. And every once in a while they do. But they also have like 500 plus yards in penalties, just stupid things that are going to get you beat no matter what. And if you do the stupid things, you're going to lose football games. And, they've had to deal with injuries. I can make a million excuses for the Browns this year. And were they complacent in the offseason? Yeah, probably. But they have the talent without a doubt to do really good things this year. And they just haven't. And whose fault is it? It's everybody's fault.
Hopefully they don't start it on Sunday. By the way, no surprise, the Georgia Bulldogs are now doing 1 through 6. Georgia comes in at number 1. So hopefully the Browns don't figure it out by Sunday for our sake. It's always kind of, whatever. I mean, with the Bengals being good again for the first time, I'm kind of on the fence because I've said this on this podcast before. So many of my best friends are Browns fans, and like myself, they've stuck with their team through so many awful years. So in the past years, when the Bengals at this point, instead of 5-3, have been, oh, Alabama comes in at number 2. All right. So the Bearcats at best are going to be number 3. It's hard for me to, root against the Browns like I do the Ravens and the Steelers. So if there's a team I want to see finish second in the AFC North, it would be the Cleveland Browns, but I hope they don't figure it out just quite yet. But yeah, there's a lot of issues there between the injuries. There's just, I don't know. And maybe
a lot of issues.
And I think there could be too many egos too. I mean, we know Baker has one, we know Odell has one, but again, like, I feel like such a fraud just pointing to those two guys, because I feel like that's a low hanging fruit, is to point at the 2 biggest names on the team and say, well, but who knows?
It's not like it's not like those 2 are doing anything to lose games. I mean, Baker, isn't playing great. I mean, he's hurt and he's stupid. He's stupid. He's playing through everything.
He's hurt and he's stupid.
He's stupid because I almost feel like he thinks like if he doesn't go out there and play, he's going to lose his job, which is ridiculous.
Well, that's the ego part though, right? He's saying he wants to be this little tough underdog, scrappy guy. And rather than take 3 weeks or a month off, I have no idea. Do you know if he needs that shoulder surgery? Michigan State in at number 3. Things getting hairy here. Things getting hairy. I'm telling.
That's why I asked you. I'm telling you right now, they're not above 5.
So right now you're going to have Oregon, Ohio State, and Cincinnati in some form.
Correct. So it's going to go Ohio State.
You think Ohio State will be at 4?
Ohio State, Cincinnati, Oregon.
No, I think they'll put Oregon above Ohio State. I don't know. I think UC's either 4 or 6. I don't think they're 5.
Okay.
But yeah, Baker Mayfield.
I say they're 5.
You think UC is going to be 5?
Yeah.
I don't think they can split them.
Why not?
Just because Ohio State and Oregon are so, I mean, as bad as Ohio State played against Oregon, they only lost by a touchdown. And everyone who's seen anything with Ohio State knows that CJ Stroud looks like he went from a true freshman to a junior from that Oregon game up until now. And I just don't think, if that's the thing, the inconsistencies with the playoffs is if people are
first week means nothing.
Yeah, that's also true. If people are sticking with, hey, Oregon is coming in at number 4. All right.
There you go.
Oregon at 4. So yeah, if people are sticking with who the best team is right now, I personally don't think that if Oregon and Ohio State played again right now, that Oregon would win. I think Ohio State's a much better team. They've plugged a lot of holes on defense. CJ Stroud, I mean, in that Oregon game, he threw for a lot of yards, but it just didn't look, the first couple games, he didn't look good. That's that. And he's gotten a lot better, and that's a credit to him and everyone at Ohio State, but that's that. So at this point, we got to just wait and see who's 5 and who's 6.
Right. There it is. But
yeah, the Browns scored 10 last week. They scored 17 against Denver. They only scored 14 against Arizona. Of course, they broke out for 42 against the Cardinals, but it's just like, yeah, I mean, I think offensively, and I apologize to everyone for talking mostly Browns on here, but I mean, it's, kind of to know the opponent. They're a mess, man. They just, and you said it, it's cliche, it's corny, but they don't know their identity. And it's like they're scratching and clawing to figure it out. But when it's November 2nd and going to be November 7th before you play again, it's hard to do that mid-season and adjust. It's kind of like I said before you came on here with guys getting traded today. Not a lot of big trades happen in the NFL. You don't really have time at this point in the season to lock yourself into a new scheme and a new program and figure it out within a few weeks. And it's kind of the same thing as a whole. The Browns don't really have time right now and maybe they do, but for the most part, it's going to be very difficult unless they really just get this running game going, which the offensive line injuries don't help, to figure out who they are.
Right, for sure. For the Bengals, I mean, just to flip it on you for a second, I know last year just the offensive line was just absolutely maligned all year long. That was the key. Do you think that up front, the Bengals line is at a point where guys like Garrett and Clowney and Malik Jackson and the guys Malik McDowell that the Browns have up front? Do you think that Bengals offensive line can hold, or is it going to be a trip for Burrow on Sunday?
By the way, Ohio State 5, Cincinnati 6.
You're right. I was wrong.
There you have it. Yes, you're stupid like Baker.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, here's the problem with Ohio State. With the Bengals offensive line, I mean, last year in particular, so Jonah Williams has been awesome at left tackle. He's just been hurt so much, and knock on wood that he stays healthy, because that's the Bengals offensive line as it is pretty good. But if they lose one guy, they're in trouble. They just don't have room. I mean, last year, Bobby Hart was on the right side. You could have went to a retirement home and found the oldest person there, and they would have been about as good as Bobby Hart on the right side of the offensive line.
Right.
You could have, I mean, he just didn't. I think sometimes he forgot he was involved in a football game. He was that bad, but let's not live in the past. For the Bengals, the offensive line's about staying healthy. Yeah, I think they can hang. They can. They did a pretty good job against the Steelers. I don't think the Steelers got a sack on him. Now, TJ Watt didn't play. But yeah, the Bengals offensive line has been a lot better. They had Jim Turner there last year, the last few years. He not a good offensive line coach, and now Frank Pollock's back. Yeah, I mean, is Myles Garrett and those guys up front going to get their shots? Sure, but you're not holding your breath every time Joe Burrow has a 5-step drop at this point. And that was the case. I mean, last year, I said it here a million times, everyone knew it was only a matter of time before he got hurt. You don't feel that way this year.
That's good for you guys, because you guys deserve that. And like I said, lots of good weapons. It'll be fun to see. I cannot wait to see how, that Browns defense matches up against that offense, and vice versa, to see if the Browns offense kind of figures it out this week, against that Cincinnati D.
All right. You ready for the rapid fire segment of the show? I don't think we've done this since you've not been on. No. You've never done this, despite this is what, your third appearance, maybe your fourth.
One of those numbers.
A 3 or a 4. All right. You ready to rock?
I am.
All right, Craig Smylie. If you could steal one Cincinnati Bengal to add to the Browns roster, who would it be?
Jamar Chase.
Jamar. All right. What's your favorite Halloween candy?
Milky Way.
Milky Way.
Yeah. Or, I mean, the candy bars that I like are like not your typical Halloween candies.
What? So I mean, that's a Halloween candy. That's just like, it's like.
Love the Milky Way.
You do you. What's your second favorite Halloween candy?
Oh, goodness gracious. Throw me under the bus here. I like Three Musketeer. I like Kit Kat.
I think Three Musketeers underrated as well. All right. Who's the best wide receiver in the AFC North?
That's a trick question. Jarvis Landry.
What?
Jarvis Landry's the
best. You think Jarvis
receiver.
Landry today is better than Jamar Chase?
I think that Jarvis Landry, when the season started, healthy Jarvis Landry on Cincinnati would be the number one guy in Cincinnati, no question.
Oh my God, that's one of the most foolish things I've ever heard.
No question.
You think Jarvis Landry would be the number? I don't know that he'd be the number 3 guy.
I think that he'd be the guy.
Boy. Well, if that's the case, then Baker Mayfield needs to be cut tomorrow.
I mean, that different strokes, different folks. I mean, Jamar Chase is playing really, really well. Like T. Higgins played really, really well last year. And like Tyler Boyd played really, really well the year before. So we'll see what happens next year when they find another wide receiver who's really good. So I mean, like, Jarvis Landry has been consistent for years on really bad teams.
Yeah, that's fair.
And I think that when they brought Jarvis Landry to Cleveland, he was the one that kind of was the turnaround for them, in the locker room, out of the locker room, whatever. Like, he's consistent. He does things that bother me, but I'd take him. I honestly would take him over any of the other guys for sure. No question about it. That's a homer call, but it's true.
What's the last movie you watched?
Dude, you're killing me.
I mean, I'm not.
Yes. What's the last movie we watched? Oh, you know what it was? It was Dear Evan Hansen in theaters. It's the musical turned movie. I saw the musical and loved it. I love a big musical fan. Took my grandma. She's like 86 years old. So stay off me.
I was gonna make fun of you, but that's very sweet of you. You're a nice young man. What's your favorite breakfast food?
Hate breakfast.
I don't like breakfast. I very rarely, if ever, eat before noon. Mm-hmm. But like sausage, gravy, and biscuits might be my favorite food. And I ate eggs and toast tonight at like 4 p.m.
I go to a hotel and they have breakfast, it makes me sick the rest of the day to eat it. I would say like a bagel and cream cheese or like poached eggs would be my top 2. But I really I'm not a big breakfast fan at all.
Okay. If the Ravens and Steelers played in the AFC Championship, who would you root for?
The Ravens.
This happened when I was in college, and after the game, there was a Steelers fan, and this was at Ohio State. And I'm not proud of this, but it happened. I forget if I had like a Bengals hat on or something, but he was talking trash, and I had an egg McMuffin that I'd ate like half of, and I threw it at him and hit him in the head.
Of course you did. And I won't say why that happened, but you know what the line is. Steelers with James Conner, then they get the nod, but without him, it's the Ravens. I'll take them.
Speaking of your time in Erie, did you get tired when you were a television sports anchor? Of course, people listening to this know you're a Browns fan. People often thought you were a Steelers homer. Did that bother you?
Not at all. I loved it. But I also had the people that thought I was a Browns homer. So it's like, anybody that listens, if you do a story on one, they're just going to say, oh yeah, you love this team. I'm like, no, it's whatever. I mean, like, there's not for 1 second, like, they're like, one of our videographers is a good buddy of mine, like his best friends who basically know me, they know that I'm a Browns fan, but they forever were just like, he hates the Browns. I'm like, what drugs are you on? Like, what opinion did you get that gave, that to you anywhere, anytime?
Follow-up question. Does that prove how foolish and perhaps stupid, like Baker, the general population is, that they cannot figure out that just because you cover a team, you don't necessarily cheer for them?
Yeah, it's funny. That's like when you go, I mean, you love the Twitter as much as the next person, even though you'll say you hate it. But
I love it for me personally. I just think it's one of the better ones, actually. Facebook is the one that I genuinely think the world is the worst place because of.
Right. When you get, especially you get the main beat writers in a town, in a city, people just, it doesn't matter what they say. Like, why do you cover this team that you hate so much? Because there's somebody paying me to do it, like,
right.
I mean, now, to be honest, and it's fair, when you cover a team for long enough, even if you're not from there, then you sort of would tend to, especially if it's the only team you cover, kind of grow some sort of affection for their success, I guess. Because it's always more fun to talk about a team that wins, but
be in those locker rooms. I don't think people realize, if you're covering, especially hyper local, like the Steelers is one thing because they're pros and they're used to it.
Right.
But like hyper local teams, like if you're covering the Erie Otters or the Seawolves or whoever it is, to go in those locker rooms afterward is a lot easier and a lot less stressful when everyone's in a good mood.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it is what it is. It's like, I got to the point, and it's fun to go to a game with my wife, who's a huge Eagles fan, and she's like, can we go to this game? And I'm just like, listen, I go, don't ever buy me sports tickets to anything outside of like a primetime Ohio State football game, like, ever. Because I've been there. I've been on the sideline when Troy Smith, Troy Smith years and Vince Young years and those Ohio State Texas games. And, I've been to the big house with standing on the field with AJ Hawk and Bobby Carpenter and those guys. And it's just like, there's nothing that you could possibly do. I cannot go to a game and have any experience that's anything close to what I did for 12 years.
Yeah, like, I'm the exact same way. And Jenna, my wife, wanted to go to a Bengals game this year. So we went to Jags and Bengals on Thursday night. And I had a lot of fun. I had a lot more fun than I expected to have. Of course, it was a great game. But once you've done what we've done and been down there, and not to be like, oh, what we've done, but it's hard to then sit in the stands next to some smelly dude who's, F-bombing the coach every other play. It's a whole different ballgame. All right, moving on. Tell me, go ahead.
No, do go.
Do you have something good to say?
Never.
All right. Tell me why the Browns beat the Bengals on Sunday.
They beat the Bengals if the defense comes to play, and I'd say forces at least 2 turnovers, and they hand the ball to Nick Chubb and let him do his thing.
Tell me why the Bengals beat the Browns on Sunday.
The Bengals beat the Browns if the Bengals offense is absolutely out of their minds and the defense can't stop them. I'd say that's it. I don't think the Browns have the ability to score anything like the amount of points that they did in the Chargers, Cardinals, that area, those kind of games, with and before, with an injured Baker Mayfield is what you're getting. I mean, you're just not, unless they just decide that, okay, we're going to do what I've been talking about, which is get the ball out of his hands quickly. They're not going to. They're too stubborn.
I think the Browns' best shot rests on sacking Joe Burrow, not pressuring, because when he's under pressure, if you don't get him, he almost is like he's better against the blitz than not. I mean, he's shifty, he'll find room, and he'll make you pay for it. If they can sack him, which I hope they don't do, and if they do, I hope they do it nice and easy. I think that's forcing them into those 3rd and longs, which are hard for anyone to convert, would be their best bet. Give me a current pet peeve. We're almost done, I promise.
Current pet peeve. I personally just hate when people use the English language improperly. There are certain words that just absolutely bother me. I cannot stand the word moist. I cannot stand the word panties. I'm not a big fan of moist panties. And I do not like the abbreviated version of delicious. When people say delish, it makes me want to vomit, mostly because of my ex-wife, but we'll leave that story for a different time.
Right. We're getting deep
a lot
here.
of those things.
So like when I texted you earlier and said let me instead of let me, did that bother you?
No, but
what about yesterday when I texted you tomorrow and it said TMRW instead of writing the word out?
No, that's just lazy, but you've always been. Just kidding.
It's true. I'm a lazy pig. My current pet peeve is people who rev up their cars. Jesus, no one. There's not and it's always like bro dudes. And there's never been like a chick in the history of chicks who's like, oh, look at that cool guy with his loud. Everyone hates that. Yet I still see it every day. Like I live in an area of Columbus where there's a lot of traffic, and like at least 2 or 3 times a day. So I'm just waiting to hear a loud crash.
Quick story. I'm driving back from Chicago. My now wife was in the passenger seat, and we're on the turnpike headed towards Cleveland. And this was a couple years ago. And from a distance behind me, I see this car going no slower than 140 miles an hour. And not only that, but just weaving in, and as if people can see my hand, weaving in and out of every lane, like probably going 4 lanes, 4 wide, like every, 20 feet, over and over and over and over and over and over and over, like the whole way. And I just said, honey, hang on, this is going to get crazy. And this idiot comes flying past me. Oh, I don't know, probably about 5 minutes later down the road in the middle lane, that car is flipped on its hood. And you're going, that had to be fatal. I posted something somewhere on social media, and turns out not only was it not fatal, chick driving.
Wow.
So she wasn't revving her engine, but she was bat crap crazy. I mean, the craziest driver I've ever seen in my life. Like, you're like, this person is trying to end it all for themselves and a lot of other people, and was a woman.
Or she was just a big Fast and Furious fan, wanted to prove she could hang.
She was driving like, what's his name? Paul Walker.
Good. Hey. Cheers. Yeah. Cheers to Paul. Old PW, I called him. All right, I'm going to ask you for prediction. Sunday score. I'm going to tell you mine first. I like the Bengals 27-13. Just looking at how, the Browns offense just cannot get it clicking. The Bengals defense, I think, is embarrassed about what Mike White and company was able to do to them on Sunday. And I'm a big believer in good teams bouncing back. And I think the Bengals are a good team. That 27 for them is a little lower. They've scored 31 plus in 3 straight games now, 30 plus, I guess you could say. But the Browns have a good defense. And like I said earlier, they're going to get pressure on Joe Burrow. It's just a matter of whether or not they actually sack him, because if they don't, he'll make you pay when you put guys one-on-one.
All right, I'm going to say that the Browns do something to figure it out. They were embarrassed against Pittsburgh. I'm going to go Cleveland 31, Cincinnati 27.
30,
no reason.
So we both got the Bengals at 27.
Yeah, 31-27. I think if the Bengals lose to the Jets, the Browns are a better team than the Jets, and therefore, by the transitive property taught to me by my math teacher, the Browns should then beat the Bengals. That's about as intelligent as it's going to get.
All right, that's fine. I mean, if anything, last week proved that no one knows anything. So,
for real.
Right, last thing here, you got to ask me a question as you take a sip of your Kool-Aid.
It's literally water with that
Mio?
Mio, yeah.
Love Mio.
I've got to ask you a question.
Yeah, it's
Is
the
it
last part of rapid fire.
any question, or is it Bengals related?
It can be any question.
What was the score of that Buckeyes game when you met your now wife when you were supposed to be working?
You know what? I know it was Indiana. I can gosh, I don't know.
What was the year?
That would have been in 2016. It was Indiana. It was in October.
Siri, what was the score of the Buckeyes and Indiana game in 2016?
I want to say, let me hold on. Can I guess, or she got it?
She's going to guess football. 38. Go ahead. Tell me what you think it was.
I was going to say 41-38, but that's clearly not right. It was a close game.
38-17, Matt.
Oh, that can't be right then.
Maybe it was in 2016.
It was definitely 2016.
Or was that a different girl?
It could have been. That could also be the case. That could be the other wife that I don't talk about on the podcast.
Was Barrett the quarterback?
I think so. Let me see here. Yeah, it would have been my first year at NBC4.
It was 3-3 after one, and then they blew up for 21 in the second quarter. And that was when you met her at halftime, right?
So October 8th, that was. Maybe it was the Wisconsin game.
Yeah, that was October 8th, yeah. Maybe
you know what?
I don't even know what game it was.
Maybe not. I think it probably was the Wisconsin game then, because that was closer, and it was definitely nighttime, and that Indiana game was a 3:30 game. No, that can't be right. It was the Indiana game, but that definitely went long.
Real fast.
It really is. I'm certain it was Indiana. It was a really long game for some reason. I remember that because it was like not even in question whether or not we could do. We had a 7:00 sports show. They still do it on NBC4, Pepsi Sports Saturday. Love you, Pepsi. But yeah, I remember we couldn't even do live hits for the 7:00 show for a 3:30 game because that game went so long.
I remember you saying that, but I was just curious. So now it's in doubt. That just ruined everything.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know. My relationship might be built on lies.
It could be.
She's sitting out there. She doesn't figure
it out. No, all she knows is she got she didn't even know what your name was at that point. The sports guy.
That's true. She didn't call me. No, she called me News. She didn't call me by my actual name for like 2 months.
Yeah.
So you're talking about me potentially having other girlfriends. I mean, what was she up to that she had to give people nicknames?
Well, I mean, it's hard to remember, Matt.
Okay, so this game was a little closer. It was only a touchdown game in the third quarter.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're right. It was 24-10 at the half. And then
I got it up here. We're
close enough.
Yeah. What are you going to do? All right. Craig Smylie, you can follow him on Twitter at Craig Smylie, where he will tweet about things sometimes like The Bachelor and
a little bit of this, a little bit of that.
Is The Bachelor in season right now?
Yeah, it's The Bachelorette. It's going to start in 18 minutes.
Oh, okay. And, shoot, I'm glad I didn't.
Yeah. You know what? I'm not a big fan of this season, but it's fresh and new. Maybe it'll get more interesting.
Well, I wish you luck.
Just you wait.
I appreciate you coming on as always. Anything else you want to tell people before we go? Any charities you want them to donate to or anything?
No, I'm good. But keep listening to this guy do his thing. He's one of the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be. Like Brett the Hitman Hart. It's in the jungle. If you like it, give it 5 stars. If you don't, there are plenty of other podcasts to listen to. It's Craig Smylie. I'm Matt Edwards. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your first week of November.